Welcome, y'all. It's my favorite podcaster, Donna D, and the Urban Mommy Podcast. Make sure y'all subscribe and share. Tell a friend and hit that bell to keep up with the latest updates, because you don't want to miss what my girl got to say. I'm just saying. The Urban Mommy Podcast. Let's go.
Hello, everybody. This is your girl, Donna D, aka the Urban Mommy, and I am back with another podcast. Today, I am joined by Kristoff, and we are going to have a very interesting discussion, as we always do. Kristoff, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi. I'm Kristoff Morrow. I'm a writer, and I've done a lot of stuff, but I have Tourette's. And of course, Donna was nice enough to have me on her show. It was very kind of you. Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Yeah, I'm a veteran, and I was in the Navy. I was a corpsman, and then I've done some stuff in journalism. I won some awards for photography and feature writing, and also for fiction, poetry, and I've written a book, and I published this year.
Okay.
I grew up in Texas, also.
Okay. You have a what? You say you live in Texas?
I grew up in Texas. Yeah, I live in British Columbia now, Vancouver.
Okay. I saw something in your bio about Louisiana. Did you live there at some point?
Oh yeah, I live there. Louisiana is very lovely. It's probably my favorite place that I've lived in the U.S. It's really peculiar politically. So it's hard to narrow down. It's very strange, but it's also just the people there are really amazing. Because you can actually, you can meet strangers and bring them back to your house, and everybody it's so normalized that everyone just sort of hangs out together. And it might be different now after COVID, but that's what it was like before. And I think in the South, I think it's a temperature thing. It's like it's always warm, so people can always socialize. So they get used to it. Or in the North, it's like everybody gets shut inside, and they get used to being apart from each other. So I think it becomes more, I don't know.
So what part of Louisiana was it?
I lived in Lafayette.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. They have nice food there.
Oh my gosh, they have nice food everywhere. Man, oh god, yes they do. I tell you, there's like the best place I've been to was in Lafayette. Was like I can't remember the name of it, but it was a Creole. It was a buffet of Creole and Cajun food, and oh my god, it's the best. It's the best thing. It was $20 a person. Best buffet on the planet. Seriously.
Yes, I love Lafayette. I'm in New Orleans, but Lafayette was nice.
Oh really?
Yes.
I love
Lafayette was nice.
Man.
Yes. So I noticed on your story, so this was like the last thing in your biography, but I wanted to start with it because it was interesting. You had an issue with the child. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I was with someone, and basically it was one of those things where it could have been me or the other guy. And but there were so many features like that the baby had that were like mine. So like the baby had blonde hair, and the dad had black hair. So you know what I'm saying? Like there was like, and I had blonde hair, right? And she blue eyes and the whole thing. And so I raised the baby with her for a couple of years. It was an ex fiance. We were only engaged for like a month, but anyway, so but I was a father basically for 2 years, and then when we found out, everything was fine. Like because she's met a lovely guy, and she's doing really well for herself, and the baby is, she's wonderful and smart and really kind and everything. So, I'm happy for her.
Yeah, that's always tough. I hate to see those stories like that because, men get attached to the kids. And I don't think those are, ever. I mean, I know sometimes on Maury it looks like it's happy endings, especially when the guys start breaking into the robot, But I don't ever think those are really happy endings.
Yeah,
You,
yeah. Well, I think it's like it is something that's um like because once you know for certain that part of you, like that part of closure, is actually feels really good, like to know for certain, right? But and so like that's in conflict with the grief that you're experiencing, that you don't have, like you won't have that family sort of anymore.
right. Um. Also, I wanted to get into your writing career.
Hmm.
It's a very, very interesting. It's actually it's intense because pretty much overnight you you were pretty sensational. I think you said you had a viral video and then you sold like 1,200 copies or something. Was it because of your viral
Yeah.
video or how did that go?
So I have Tourette's, right? And a large part of that's a large part of like what I struggle with, because like for example, like I'm not wearing it now because I wear it literally 24/7, and I have been for like a week straight, and so I've taken it off for a while, but I can't use my right thumb anymore because I've injured it so much, right? And so like there's and I beat this hand on things so much that like it's chronically swollen. I punch myself, and anyway, this is all to say that I started to make TikTok videos to discuss my Tourette's and how it manifests, because I know that it's a rare form. And when I began to look into like uh, kind of supports, I wasn't able to find anyone who shared in my suffering, except for somebody that's really famous for it, and they're not going to answer me. So, Sweet Anita, like I haven't tried, so she might have. But I just thought it would be hopeless. So I just, but she anyway. So I discussed that for probably like 3 weeks, just different videos about my life with Tourette's, exclusively content about me. And then finally, I made a video about how someone had reviewed my book that I didn't know. It was a stranger, and she loved it. Like she loves it, and she's like kind of like she's a young aunt now for me. So we're actually very close now. But she she made a video, and I shared that video, and I the next day, as a result of that video and her review, two more people bought my book, and I made a video about that and how excited I was, and I was hoping that they would like it, they would love, and how much it meant to me. And anyway, because of that video, a bunch of people bought my book in the middle of the night, and so when I woke up in the morning, I was number like 247 on Amazon's epic fantasy list for Amazon.com. So that's the largest marketplace that they have. And so yeah, I was really excited. And there are writers who make a great deal of money who would call that still very modest, and I would agree, but I don't care. Anyway, um so because I didn't have anyone reading my book before. No one. I had no, like I was literally completely alone and in isolation, almost, trying to produce this thing. So after I made a video about that to say like, wow, I'm number 247. Isn't that cool? And that video was almost at 400,000 views. And then I gained like thousands of followers overnight. Um, like, and so I have about 5,000 now, and I all of my entire channel is about my work. It's not about, like, I don't post memes or anything like that. It's completely about me, which is, I think that's a good indicator, because so I have a great deal of support, and they've helped me out like a lot, a lot. I when I needed to be able to afford my medications, and for other things that were absolutely necessary for me to persist, and uh, people were able to help me get what I need. It was amazing, and that's happened more than once because I had to. This wall right here, all this soundproofing stuff came from people that like my work. I had to, and so they is extraordinary. In fact, I've kept all the tickets. These are the tickets of the Amazon stuff that they've sent me in packages. This is for the
Wow.
last month. This is like it's a giant. It's like there's probably like 40 or 50 in here, honestly.
Wow. And how many followers you said you have?
About 5,000.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, the people that look like my work. I don't like to call them fans. I think it's weird. I can't. I feel like it's dehumanizing. I don't know. So I just call them people that like my work, and it takes longer, but it's, I get to live a much easier life. So I'll say the harder thing. It's like because of them. So, um, so yeah, that video. And then recently I went viral again because I made a video about how I had noticed someone was reading my work on the Kindle Unlimited, and I was tracking them like day by day. I was like, "You're reading hundreds of pages per day, which is extraordinary because it's a lot." Mm,
Oh, so you
mm.
were watching. Wow. So you would. That's just. I'm still like so amazed at how like you think you would need tens of thousands of of fans to have that type of support, but that's the support you have with 5,000 is sufficient. That's awesome.
Mhm.
That's pretty good.
Well, they. I
And what
mean,
type you said is epic?
yeah, it's really a work of. I tried to make it. I mean it to be a work of literature, dressed in the suit of epic fantasy. Because
Okay.
I feel like epic fantasy is really when I saw Game of Thrones success, I was really inspired by that because of by people's love for fantasy and high fantasy. Truly, it was is extraordinary, and how much people connected with the different characters, and how complex much of it could be, and still the audience demonstrated a comprehension, like a thorough comprehension of everything that was going on, and had like their own like really cogent arguments for and against like certain qualities of the characters of the plot. I mean, it's really amazing how much people devoted to understanding this world that George R. R. Martin created. So I wrote The Second Son, um, and I thought I would take it a step further. So George R. R. Martin writes fantasy, yes, but it's not really literature because it's a little bit more. There's a lot of it's not really there's not a lot of poetry outside of the dialogue, which is the dialogue is extraordinary much of the time. So he wins on that. I really admire him in that on that front. But his prose is different from mine. I do my prose is much more akin to something like Charles Dickens.
Hmm.
And I admire writers like Shakespeare, P.G. Wodehouse, Jane Austen, Virginia Woolf. Like there's a lot of introspection, a lot of grim, or not really sardonic, but I think maybe just I don't really know even a grim sort of facetiousness, I guess. I don't know, like just yeah, and so yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Did you always want to be a writer?
You know, I remember I haven't spoken about this on any other interviews I've done just because I like to be more consistent, right? But I actually did when I was very little. I think I was like 7 or 8. I started to write a story on paper, and it was all and it was like I wrote it. It was pages long, it was like 20 pages, and it was okay. I'm a kid, like I was a little kid, and I was just writing it, and I don't remember what I wrote about, but I remember really enjoying it, but not really understanding what I was doing. But I know that I for some reason I kind of liked it. But when I was 13, I had a sort of awakening. When I was in we were in first period. I was in 7th grade, and our teacher, in first period, she said, "We're going to write a letter to the soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan." So I considered that a very solemn task, and I really committed myself to writing something that I hoped they would consider they would feel was beautiful, and like would help to sort of negotiate some of their uh, some of their disconnection from like home and normalcy and normality, right? So I wrote this letter, and I remember feeling this incredible music, and when I turned it in, I didn't think anything of it, but it was at lunchtime, is midday now. I was swarmed by a bunch of kids that said, "Oh my God, Miss Spree has been reading your letter to every class, and she wants to publish it in the newspaper." I'm like, "Oh, what?" And then the only reason the only reason I believed it, because I was very viciously abused growing up. The only reason I believed all of this praise was because one of the kids that I knew that hated me, his name is Clint Hackney. I'll never forget this guy. He says, "Yeah, man, your letter was really good, actually. You're like, yeah, it was really good. It was beautiful." I was like, okay, hold on. Nah, there's something going on. There's something to this. So she when I met my teacher a few minutes later, she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're just so beautiful." And I was like, "Okay." Um, and I didn't start writing again though until I was in the Navy. Um, and a friend of mine that I served with, Mike Buchek, who I actually went to high school with, went to boot camp with, and then A school, which is our school, core school, to be a corpsman. And then, yeah, so we found out we both went to boot camp like 5 weeks in to boot camp. We were in the brother division, so we both went to boot camp at the exact same time. It's strange. Anyway, the point is that he says that I started writing something on his computer just because I was bored, and he said that sounds like song lyrics, and so I started writing. That's kind of when I started sort of actually doing it. And that preceded me winning like some awards for short fiction and poetry, and then getting a personalized rejection letter from the New Yorker. The editors of the New Yorker told me my work, when I was 22 years old, the work that I had done was quite compelling.
Wow. You also won some stuff in college as well, right?
Yeah, that's the short fiction and poetry that I won for. They two different colleges that I went to had annual creative writing contests, and I won both of them. All of the first place in all the categories of the.
So, but like the Chat GPT before Chat GPT.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, the thing is, it's very wanting. In terms of, I mean, so much actually, uh, but it can imitate sort of. But whenever you read it, it feels like the phrasing has been plucked from somewhere else. That's the
Yeah.
word I would describe. It feels plucked, like
Mm-hmm.
it's been plucked and then placed there, and it's kind of like it's like Tetris. It's I don't know. It has to be organizing it through like syllables or something, because otherwise I really don't know how that would otherwise manifest. So
So I know you have Tourette's.
catamaran. Yep.
So how does it, or I mean, does it affect your? I mean, I know it affects your life, but does it affect your writing or anything like that?
Hmm. Um. I feel like in spirit it does. Of course, I think it's important, if you do suffer from something, and you have the means or the platform to discuss that to better someone else, like you should. And my work, I try to describe like so many different disabilities and the nuance of those conditions, and the suffering and people suffering, because a lot of it is unnoticed. It's invisible to people from the outside. And so it affects my work as much as my love for people does. It's an extension of that, and so it modifies it for the better. I think it it, it helps me to be more conscientious of the kind of characters that I add to the story and like what their features are. you know. There's so many different ones. And I've been I've been emailed. I've been written on different platforms. People tell me that their favorite character is this one or that one. And it's because they have a condition that they share, and it's that and how much it meant to them that they were in there, and how I there were some events that happened to the character that happens to the person all the time. No one really knows about that. It's really funny. So I thought it was great. It was That's what I did it for, though. I wanted it to be an adventure for everyone because I have Tourette's. It informed that
Right. Now, forgive me, I don't know much about Tourette's other than what I see on TV. So is
on the
it
South
something
Park.
that you, right? Is it something that you have lifelong, or was it something that you was
Yeah,
diagnosed?
I didn't. Yeah, I was diagnosed at 20. I was diagnosed at 26, I think. Which is unusual, uh, because Tourette's in the DSM-5. They In the criteria they describe Tourette's being having to occur before it has to occur before the age of 18, but mine didn't manifest until I was 19 when I was in the Navy. So, it doesn't. It's. I don't think it's a hard rule, and the way it's manifested has like become worse and worse. Like I at first, uh, I think a lot of people see that what you just said, that Tourette's, the way they see it in the media is like what South Park did, which was show them like cursing and that sort of thing. And for a long time, I held the prevailing view, which was like, well, that's a very limited view of Tourette's, right? But then I discovered, by then when I thought about it, I realized that they actually did kind of a service when you think about it, because it's the most damaging and dangerous part of having Tourette's, really, I think, is like startling people and screaming curse words, because that really, especially in America, that can get you killed these days. Like, yeah. So if just when you consider that, the fact that people would be able to associate that behavior with Tourette's almost immediately and invariably, it's kind of helpful, actually. It's kind of like they did the best they could to knock out the one, and I'm sure there are other things that people don't highlight in the episode. I haven't seen it in a long time, but yeah, it's no.
Now, I've never I haven't seen that South Park. I think it was like a movie. I can't remember what movie, but I kind of remember the cursing, but like I remember like the kind of like moving around. So that's all I kind of
Mhm.
knew about it. Like with this kind of snitch, having a
Yeah,
moving around. That's all I really knew about it. So, um, you can still live a full life, with it. But most people that I interview that have, some form of disability, they always say something like, I use it as my superpower. So you kind of do the same, because you kind of use it to put it into your books, and then you make characters, in
you
your
really,
book.
yeah. Hmm. You really don't have a choice, right? I think a lot of people, there's that phrase that people often employ. It's a platitude, right? They say, "I don't know how you do it." Like, I don't know how you deal with it, and it's you know how, it's like because you have to. You don't really. It's either that or die. Like, you don't have a choice,
Right.
And so, like, I know I know it's meant out of it's a sentiment, not so much like a statement of like true disbelief, but it's still an incomplete sentiment, I think, because it's just, I think people should take it one step further and say, like, you're extraordinary, and I understand your I want to know that, I want you to know that I appreciate your situation, and I don't know. That's just me, though.
Right. So you've written books, and you've also did some screenwriting.
Ah,
Which
yeah.
one? Which one do you like a little better?
Oh my God, the book. Oh yeah, books. 100%. 100%. I
What
hate.
so?
Oh God, I hate collaborating. I hate collaborating because collaborate. Oh god, it's such a pain. Um, the amount of like you know what is it the amount of accommodations that you make. You know, it's really it kind of because you have to because based on necessity like oh we have to film now the scene is going to take place at dusk because we don't have the set time to do this later and we're just going to modify just a little bit and I'm like for me it's like no it's exactly the way it's supposed to be and if you want to change one part of it that means you have to change every other part around
Dang,
it.
right.
Yeah, like I'm the kind of writer that will go in and uh like delete a comma and then resubmit it. I swear, because mm, I swear that's who I am. I cannot help it, but that's just I think it helps me do the work I do. So.
So, who's your favorite character in your book?
Oh my god, you know what? I've asked that question to like when I ask that to everyone, then I think because for me, there's no quality more important in a story than the characters. Like there's nothing. There is you can't name anything else. There isn't because there's even this is proven. Everything Everywhere All at Once. That movie. Have you seen this? Well, Everything Everywhere All at Once is about that. Is the woman is it's all about following her experience of reality shifting and blending with other dimensions around her, and so it is her experience is it remains like fixed, but what's happening around her changes, her context changes dramatically, and so you really don't have much gravity in terms of the viewer except for her, and so and the movie is carried the entire time by her performance and by the writing is incredible, and the everything and that they did in it. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing. It is amazing. Um, and that proves like there's so many examples of stuff that can be quite that was made quite profound, and the reason why Game of Thrones is great because everyone can connect with the characters. Nobody cares about world building that much. They want to know, for example, when people do world building in epic fantasies, they always think it's got to be like this long Tolkien-esque thing where it's like 3,000 years of explanation. Nah, because they're like, nah, you know what? People care about what's going on now. Like, what is that doing now? Like, what's happening in the world because of all that stuff? I get it. What's happening now? And so, like, that's my philosophy. Like, I approach for this. I do the exact same. That's mine. Yeah, adventure.
Um, so you've lived almost all around the world. What
Yeah.
I don't want to say favorite. But what are some of the most memorable places that you've lived?
I lived all over the U.S. and and a few places in Canada actually. I've lived I lived in Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, New York, Florida, Chicago. Um, I've traveled to most of the states, and I've lived in Alberta and British Columbia. My favorite place is Louisiana, of course. Louisiana is the best for everything, just everything, food, people. Um, I don't know, it's just the best. And uh, beyond that, everywhere else is just so kind of like it's like once you live in Louisiana, it's hard to like enjoy anywhere else because everywhere else is just kind of uptight. You know, this is yeah. I don't know. That's just me. Vancouver's really great though. It's like Jurassic Park over here, like all the time. Like no, seriously, if you saw the foliage, it's like it's thick here, like all the time, and like right now it's winter. It just came into winter, I think, and it looks like Jurassic Park still. There's moss growing everywhere still. That's how warm it is.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's pretty hot here. I have a sweater on, but it's hot.
Oh yeah, Louisiana's gonna be hot. Yeah,
It's hot. I'm sorry, I pressed the wrong button. They're doing construction. That's why I keep pressing the mute button. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
So, what do you have planned for books in the future?
So I published this one, and I've already started working on. the third. So this is volumes 1 and 2, and then I'm writing volume 3 right now, and I'm almost done with volume 3 for the first draft anyway. But the way I wrote uh, this first draft is different. I approached it differently than I did the first time, because when I wrote this book, the volumes 1 and 2, I just did 162,000 words of just notes. I realized at the end there was no prose. There was no like the character felt this because of this. It was just like the character did this, the character did that, the character said this, the character ran up the thing, did that. I was like, oh my god, I have to rewrite the entire freaking book. But it turns out that that's actually the way that you're supposed to do it. I learned John Steinbeck says that. Jordan Peele, his my favorite. He's one of my favorite writers that are alive anyway, and he said that the first draft he always likes to. It's like shoveling sand into a sandbox so that he can make sandcastles with it later. So it's really a sort of aggressive production. It's not so deliberate. It's very haphazard, but it's still done to create an efficiency, because plot development is a lot more relevant to like creating gravity and planets of thought that the plot can center around. You know what I mean? Like you need the characters to discuss. Like you need the events, the major events, to help describe the micro events.
Okay, so can you tell us about the book?
Yeah, it's actually so like I said, it's epic fantasy, right? So but I feel like a lot of epic fantasies these days struggle with like having like there's not a lot of literature that produced in the genre, and it's about climate change, it's about empire, it's about the fall of empire, it's about rebellion, it's about slavery, it's about giants, it's about pirates, it's about it has massive countries at war, and it has there's very little magic actually, because I just know their magic can be rather unruly, like you can get out of hand, like suddenly you're at Marvel's end game situation where like you're not really sure how these people are surviving or not surviving. You're like, okay, the rules are kind of weird, and so there's not a lot of magic because of for that reason. And yeah, there's it's meant to be an allegory for like the way that we're living right now. Like right now we have baby boomers living in a sort of financial paradise, right? While the rest of the world is basically like struggling. I can substantiate this too. That I'm 34 years old. When I was 32, I remember seeing the statistic that millennials at our time, at the same age as baby boomers at this point if they were the same age right now, at this point in their 30s, they had 20% of the wealth in the country. Do you know how much it is for the millennials?
How much?
At the same age, we only have 2%.
Wow.
So it's not good. Yeah, so the amount of money that they had versus like what we're dealing with is quite is a huge disparity. And so it's also about income inequality for that. So the reason someone told me yesterday that it's like if Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones had a baby. That's what they would describe that my book is Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones if they had a baby. And I agree with that in terms of like splitting the difference in violence. I didn't want Game of Thrones type violence because I thought that was kind of extreme. I wanted it somewhere but I thought Lord of the Rings was too tame. So I wanted it somewhere in the middle of those. And in terms of the poetry, actually, I wanted that in there too, because I wanted to challenge the way that people considered things. And considered words. because words are beautiful. They are the only magic of our invention.
Okay, I like that. All right, so you do have a way with words, and after reading reading about you and listening to your past and your upbringing, I know you said that you kind of came up with a abusive
Mhm.
upbringing.
Oh yeah.
Think that kind of helped shape you into the person you are, because it could go one of two ways. It can make you a violent person, or it can do the opposite. And
No,
do you
no, it's I
do?
yeah, and the thing is that it's not, right? It's not fixed either way, actually. It doesn't make me wholly peaceful, nor does it make me wholly violent. I have Tourette's, which means that my ability to restrain emotionally is challenged quite significantly. And so, like in the same way that I cannot restrain my body from doing movements and sounds, it's the same emotionally. I don't regulate them very well. And so in terms of it developing who I was, I'm not sure that it was necessary. I think, for as long as I can remember, the most noble concept on earth to me was the idea of being a knight. Because, and not like in the traditional way. I mean, in the way that in the way that I sort of formed it in my head, which is the way that I executed it in my book. Well, I tried to create uh, that kind of person, sort of, and that calling anyway. Um, and so I was like 6 years old. I remember whenever um, my dad had just hit me a bunch, and I was like really upset about it, obviously. And I was crying, and I was in the front yard, and I told myself that I would never do that to my children. And I don't think I ever really changed after that. Like in terms of like there was a feeling I sort of knew that I wasn't like that and I wasn't going to do that. So, no.
Right. Okay. So as we come on up to the end of the podcast, I like to ask, if you can talk to your 17-year-old self, what would you tell him?
Mm. Oh god. I think I would just give him a hug and say it's going to be okay, I guess.
I think that's the best answer I heard. Like, that was the best answer I heard. Best answer. That sometimes that's all we need. All right. So thank you so much, Kristoff. I enjoyed this talking to you. Congratulations on all your victories. That is, and pretty impressive. Your your fans, your followers, the support that you have, the sales that you have, that is impressive.
Oh,
Your career. Thank you for your service and everything else. Thank you for coming on. Um,
yeah.
just thank you for everything. And thank you to the listeners
Yeah.
for for being here as well. Sorry about the background noise, guys, and sorry about the technical difficulties if you all noticed some. Um, you have anything else you want to say before we go?
Um yeah, I like to say justice and redemption are folly, but to seek them is not.
I like
Mm.
that. Okay. All right.
All
So
right.
if the Lord says the same, I will see you all. And it's for holiday season. So happy holidays to all. See
All
you later.
right.
Bye
Bye.
bye.